Okay, guys, we are back again. I am Lisa. I'm here with some fat reacts. Okay, join me on this journey. We are reacting to the last 3 videos. This is video number 4 of the Fat Bride. No, I do not call her that. That is not the name that I gave her. It is the name that she chose for herself. Okay, her name is Hannah. She is the Fat Bride. She's really upset because people are really giving her backlash over kind of being a little bitter and jealous towards someone who lost a bunch of weight. And she came out and said, hey guys, guess what? Just because she lost weight doesn't mean that she's not going to gain it back. Statistically, it's her favorite word, statistically there. She's just, statistically, she's going to gain it back. And when she does, she needs to know it's going to be okay. Like, girl, way to just be a support system there, right? The absolute going out of her way to demoralize someone in order to gaslight herself and everyone else around her, unsuccessfully, by the way. For the most part. I mean, obviously, the people who live in the delusion are buying right into it, but unsuccessfully, as I said, for the most part, in order to keep herself in her behavioral mindset. And by behaviors, if you're on my channel regularly, you know what I mean by behaviors. She has to maintain the lie. She has to exert control over her environment in order to keep this lie going. Okay, guys? And we're going to watch her crashing out with video number 4 and just see where she's going with this. And by the way, if you want to talk about bitter and jealousy, guys, I am both fat and not a bride. She is fat and a bride. She is one up on me. As I said, good for you, girl. Nothing but congrats there. Okay, let's get started.
It is incredible how hard people will fight for the systems that keep them down. This is the last thing I'm going to say about the video where I talked about the 95% of diets fail stat. I made a video where I said 95% of diets fail. Why would you gamble on being in the 5%? People can argue about those stats. Those stats do exist. The best stats I've seen is like 80 to 85% of diets fail. So still, it's a huge gamble for you to believe that you are the 15 to 20%. Now, people seem to think I'm being cruel and defeatist and negative by commenting on the fact that your diet is probably going to fail. You're probably going to regain the weight now. That's not it at all. One, it's lived experience. I know the worst pain that I've experienced in my battle with my body was when I regained weight.
I'll let that play on there for a bit. I was really hoping she would circle back around to the word systems, because as we all know, I heard that word, and if you watch my other content, you know I was like, systems of oppression, hierarchies, capitalism. I was so waiting for her to say it. Maybe she'll come back around to it, okay? Maybe she's talked about it in other videos, but when I hear systems, my ears perk up. I'm a little too giddy tonight, guys. I don't even know why. She said her favorite word again, statistically likely that you will regain the weight. Why would you even want to gamble? Why? I can't do a British accent. I'm assuming she's British. I don't even really know. And I just also like how she directly addressed the claim. She's like, I'm not being defeatist. I'm not being negative. When she's like absolutely 100% saying defeatist negative things. It's like, girl, if the shoe fits. Like, you can just say, hey guys, I know this is negative. I know this is pessimistic, but this is reality. You can say that. That would be more realistic, but because you're doing 2 contradictory things, people are calling you out on it. Like, I always say, guys, I know this sounds harsh. It's a harsh truth. I don't mean to be mean, but sometimes the truth is mean, but you can't be fat and healthy at the same time. That's just living in reality. It's like, hey, I know it's harsh to hear, but this is the truth. She's not saying that. She's like, guys, I'm not actually being harsh, but this is the likelihood. This is the statistics. And it's like, never mind that when they talk about how diets fail, there are no adequate studies to show that diets fail. Okay, what they show are a bunch of people that they cannot lock into a room and force feed them like a hamster. Okay, they can't force them on a diet. All you can do is ask them, hey guys, pretty please tell us the truth that you actually stuck this diet. And they're like, yeah, I totally did. Money, please. Or I'm not even sure. Maybe it's like a volunteer thing, right? And they're like, you know, they don't want to admit to the people that they're talking to that they didn't actually stick to the plan. Like, we talked about research before, and if you know anything about research, you can't lock people in a cage, okay? I don't know how many times I have to say it. But you can't treat people like lab mice. And therefore, we have a significant amount of people who are trying to lose weight in a society where the government is not that helpful in you losing weight, as in the dietary guidelines of America suck like a lot. It's going to be an uphill battle, okay? And that is why we are on a mission to change things, okay? I know I'm just one person on YouTube, but I'm doing my best to show you how it's done. I've lost a lot of weight. I've been keeping it off. It's been almost 3 years. I'm continuing to lose weight. Maybe I'm just the 5%, guys. Maybe I'm just the special.
So genuinely, I think it is important to acknowledge that's probably going to happen and to not blame yourself so harshly for it. There are so many things at play that may lead to you regaining the weight. What I find particularly disturbing about the way people responded to that video is that people are so eager to fight for a system that keeps them down, that persecutes them, that makes their life worse than it needs to be. If diet culture didn't exist, if someone hadn't told you that your body was bad, if someone hadn't told you that it was your personal responsibility to not be so fat and lazy, you would feel drastically different in the world. The people in these comments fighting with me about this, saying, don't say that, it's defeatist, they are inadvertently telling me they think the only way they can be happy is to be thin, right?
Systems came back, guys. My dreams came true. The system here being diet culture, right, is an oppressive system that is being shoved upon you. And the only reason why you associate fat with being bad is because that diet culture industry told you so. Never mind that there's been very few times throughout human history where being fat was an actual sustainable or good thing. Like, yeah, we always have that anecdote about in history, like if you had like a slightly fatter person, it meant that they were wealthy because they could afford more food. It's because they could afford more food. Do you even hear yourself? So they were able to indulge the moral of that story. But it's not the standard, and it's not the way that most people evolved. And I've also talked about this in other videos, and this is something I got from a comment, but basically people likely evolved the association of fat as bad due to how when people get sick or when they're like dying, they're bloating, they're full of like inflammation, and so we associate that bloated, inflamed look with sickness. And we can see that if you do gain fat, you are also gaining bloat and inflammation along with fat. Your body is unhealthy. They will always point to blood tests too, and they will say, well, my blood tests are great, but they'll never show you their ESR. They'll never show you their C-reactive to show you that their inflammation is off the charts like mine is. Okay, like there's actual things that you can test for, but they won't bring that up. They're always like cholesterol, diabetes, blood pressure. I'm like, those are only 3 components and a whole host of things that can be wrong with you. And honestly, I do think inflammation should be on the standard blood test, on the standard blood draw, because it is the actual killer of people. Inflammation is so freaking bad for you. Ugh, let's get this video over with.
And I have been there. I have felt that way. The reality is there are many other ways for you to be happy. I am the happiest I have ever been, and I am no longer engaging in intentional weight loss. It is...
Guys, I know I sound mean when I say this. I don't care. Go back before I pause the video and look at her eyes. Does she look the happiest a person has ever been? She looks like she's on the verge of tears. Girls, it's because you're getting pushback about reality on your internet. Like, I'm sorry that that's the case. Like, I'm sorry that people are pushing back on your obvious deceit, your obvious demoralization. Okay, you're being called out on this because you're actually wrong. And now you're projecting your own issues on your inability to lose weight and keep that weight off onto society and blaming society for the way that you feel about yourself. But you don't look happy. You look like you're in the midst of your behaviors. And honestly, good on everybody who is fat, who has lost weight, who's pushing back on this, because you can't let that little like earworm get into your brain and tell you that it's all hopeless, that it's all going nowhere. And she also really seems to have an issue with the word personal responsibility. Like that seems to be a real sticking point for her. I always hear it's more about willpower. That's the thing that they hate. They hate the word willpower. And I don't like that word either too, because I don't think it applies in all situations. But personal responsibility, like what's wrong with having responsibility over yourself? You're just basically saying that you have no ability to exercise responsibility over yourself.
So liberating, being able to actually plan my life, think about my future, and not have, when I lose weight, this is how much weight I will lose before I do XYZ attached to it. And I don't understand why people not only want to fight with the stats, like, yeah, they can exist, but don't tell me about them. We can't deny the stats. You might be the exception to the rule, but why are you fighting so hard for fatness to be viewed as bad?
This is another thing they do all the time. They're like, have you seen the statistics? Have you seen the research? The research is on our side. But when you bring up the research that shows how fat is absolutely correlated with health and how you cannot be fat and healthy at the same time, no, that research is bigoted. That research is racist. That research is sexist. Our research is the research that matters, but yours isn't. And do I believe that the research that we have on hand shows that a lot of diets fail? Yeah. But once again, I'll say it again, guys. You can't lock people in a cage. You can't force feed them to eat the way that you want them to, because the kind of research that we do with like double blind studies can only go so far when it comes to people before you like have a human rights violation. But there are plenty of examples of people who have lost weight and kept it off, who lost it naturally, who didn't use medications, who didn't use weight loss surgery. They found the way to do it. And you're calling them, yeah, they're the statistically unlikely 5%. I think that percent would be significantly higher if we had a government and a healthcare industry and a food industry that was all working together to actually give us the real information on what we should and should not be eating. Eat butter, guys, and beef tallow. Don't eat seed oils.
Really smacks of ableism aside from anything else. So many of the conversations are, well, I was unhealthy fat, or yeah, being fat is unhealthy. Okay. There are a lot of things that are unhealthy that we have no control over or have limited control over. Do we deserve to be vilified and punished for those things? Do we deserve to be told that our lives are...
That was such a whataboutism. She was just like, you're saying fat is unhealthy, but disabled people. What does one have to do with the other? Okay, as somebody who's both fat and disabled, yeah, I shouldn't deserve to be vilified for my disability, but my God, my disability is something I cannot change about myself. But my fatness is something I can change. Stop treating fatness like it's an immutable characteristic. It's offensive.
Not worth it unless we can magically cure health issues that often we were born with. I make a video where I'm like, look, this really helped me. It was really painful for me to accept that I probably wasn't going to be the exception to the rule, that I was probably never going to manage to lose weight and then maintain that weight loss. That was awful. I spent like 20 years of my life obsessed with losing weight and refusing to do things I wanted to do until I lost weight. And I lost weight multiple times and I always regained that weight. I make a video where I'm like, look, this really helped me. It would really help you to accept this. And I didn't mean, and I even said this, don't lose weight or don't try to lose weight. What I specifically said was, if you regain the weight, do not punish yourself. Do not feel the level of shame about it that I have previously felt, that I know other people have felt. Do not blame yourself so much, because part of...
She's making a really strong emotional appeal here. And it just goes back to that, just the lack of self-awareness, where she doesn't think that we just literally just watched that other video. Girl, you were being snarky. You were being snarky because you took offense that somebody said that you sounded bitter. And so you were really, really insisting that if somebody did lose weight, they were likely going to regain it. And yeah, we don't care if you're talking about the stats. That's not what you should be advocating for just because something is a failure. Like, for example, it's like, how many people survive different types of cancer? Should we say, hey, you just probably just shouldn't even try doing chemo, guys? Just don't even try. Statistically, it's not going to work out for you. No, we advocate for coming up with better treatment plans, better medications, a cure. We put our money and our effort towards those other things because we know that cancer is unhealthy, okay? We know that fat is unhealthy. We should be advocating for better resources to help people lose weight and maintain that weight loss.
So much, because part of diet culture and a fat phobia is that we take so much personal responsibility for stuff that isn't really to do with our moral fortitude. And that's the point. And I do not understand why people, especially people who have experienced being fat and know how the world responds to them, want it to be true that the only way to be happy is to be thin.
She keeps using that word happy. Most people are not even talking about happiness. They're just talking about health. That is, once again, her projection. She is putting her own behaviors and essentially disordered way of thinking on the people in her comments, assuming they all just want to be skinny for how they look. It's always talking around the health, and when health is brought up, it has to be you can be fat and healthy at the same time. And guys, I'm sorry that she's upset in that video, but I think that's just what happens when you're faced with reality. When you have worked so hard to remain in a delusion and you are confronted with the truth. Maybe she'll put out more videos. I don't know. I thought this was extremely interesting. I don't know where it goes from here. I think those 4 videos were a perfect example of what the full circle delusion looks like. It starts off with like snark and a lot of self-confidence, and then when they get pushed back and they get steadily more and more upset to the point where she's almost basically crying in this video. Okay, clearly there is an extreme emotional component to this. And yeah, I'm sure someday somebody's gonna take my reaction video and react to me and start putting me down, and we'll just have to see how that goes. I'm gonna be upset. But the thing is, the difference is I know I'm right, okay? I know I am standing on business. I know that one must lose weight in order to be healthy if they are of an overweight size. I know that you cannot be fat and healthy at the same time. I know that if you are fat, you have significant inflammation in your body. And I have stated repeatedly that if you gain the weight, it might not be your fault, but it is your responsibility to find help for yourself so that you can be healthy and you can live a very long and healthy life, whether or not that makes you happy. That's not really my concern. Be mad and fit if you want to. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed those videos. We'll see if she puts some more out later, but yeah, I'll talk to you later. Okay, bye.